a Turkish kid, 8 years old. His name was Necati, and he was starving. The streets of Cologne were freezing that December night in 1980, snow falling softly, families walking past with shopping bags full of Christmas presents, the smell of roasted chestnuts in the air, laughter, warmth, joy, and there he stood, alone, his father's gold ring trembling in his small, frozen hands. "Please, sir, please buy my father's ring. We haven't eaten in 3 days." The man in the expensive coat looked down at him. For just a moment their eyes met. The boy thought, maybe this time someone will help. The man kept walking. Nobody stopped. Nobody cared. Just another immigrant kid begging in the snow. But that moment, that crushing moment of rejection, it changed something inside little Necati. Something broke. Something hardened. And something dangerous was born. 20 years later, that same hungry boy would control the most powerful criminal empire in Hamburg. He'd rise from absolute poverty to untouchable wealth. He'd become a king, a legend, a ghost story that parents told their children. But the price? His soul, his humanity, everything good that once lived inside that freezing 8-year-old boy. His name? Necati Arabaci. They called him Nico. And this is his story. Not just a crime, but of pain, of loss, of a child who the world abandoned, and how he made the world pay. But here's what will break your heart. That ring, his father's ring, he never sold it. Even when they were starving, even when they had nothing, he kept it because it was the last piece of his father he had left, the last connection to the man who loved him, who tried, who failed, who died. And years later, when Necati had everything, when he had millions, power, respect, fear, he still wore that ring every single day. A reminder not of revenge, but of love, of a father who couldn't protect his son, and a son who would never forgive the world for taking his father away. In 1972, a young Turkish family arrived at Cologne Central Station. A father, a mother, and a little boy holding his father's hand so tight it hurt. They came with dreams, real dreams. The father had been promised construction work, good wages, a better life for his family, a chance for his son to go to a real school, to have opportunities he never had, to become something more than a poor farmer's grandson. They moved into a cramped 2-room apartment in Ehrenfeld, the Turkish quarter, where all the immigrants lived, where the rent was cheap and the walls were thin, and you could hear your neighbor's struggles through the plaster. The father worked. God, how he worked. 12-hour days. Sometimes 14. His hands callous and bleeding. His back breaking under the weight of concrete and rebar and the dreams he carried for his family. Little Necati would wait by the window every evening, watching, waiting for his father to come home. And when he finally appeared at the end of the street, exhausted, shoulders slumped, Necati would run downstairs and throw himself into his father's arms. "Did you have a good day, Baba?" His father would smile, always smile, even when the pain was written across his face. "The best day, because I get to come home to you." If you're feeling this already, subscribe, because what happens next, it will shatter you. But Necati noticed things other children didn't. He saw how German people looked at his father, the disgust, the dismissal, like he was invisible, or worse, like he was garbage. He saw his mother crying quietly in the kitchen when she thought nobody was watching, counting coins, again and again, trying to make the numbers work, trying to figure out how to feed her family for another week. He saw his father's hands, scarred and broken, bandaged with strips of old cloth because they couldn't afford proper medical care. And he saw his father's eyes, once full of hope, slowly dimming, month by month, year by year, as Germany crushed him under the weight of broken promises. By age 12, Necati had changed. He'd stopped playing, stopped smiling. He'd sit on the apartment steps for hours, just watching, learning, studying the world that hated him. He watched German businessmen in expensive suits, their watches, their confidence, the way people moved aside for them, respected them, feared them. He watched luxury cars drive past, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, symbols of power, of success, of belonging. And he made a promise to himself, quietly, in his heart, one day I'll have what they have, and they'll move aside for me. Then came April 1984, the night that changed everything, the night that killed whatever innocence was left inside 12-year-old Necati. His mother's birthday. His father had been saving for months, hiding money in a coffee tin. 5 marks here, 10 marks there, sacrificing his lunch, walking to work instead of taking the bus, all so he could give his wife one special night, one memory of feeling normal, of feeling human. They got dressed in their best clothes. His father wore the one suit he owned, carefully pressed, the gold ring on his finger catching the light. His mother wore her wedding dress, still beautiful, still elegant, her eyes bright with hope. Where we going, Baba? Somewhere special, a nice restaurant, a real German restaurant, like a real family. They walked hand in hand through the city, past the shops, past the cafes, past a world that pretended they didn't exist, until they reached it, a beautiful restaurant, warm light glowing through the windows, the sound of laughter and music inside. His father took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, and approached the door. 2 bouncers blocked their path. Massive men, shaved heads, cold eyes, arms crossed. Not for Turks. His father smiled, that gentle, hopeful smile, pulled out the money, all of it, every mark he'd saved. Please, it's my wife's birthday. We just want dinner. One dinner. I can pay. See? I have money. The bouncers looked at each other, and they laughed, loud. Cool. We said no Turks. You deaf? Or just stupid? Please. My son is here. My wife. Please. We're not causing trouble. We just want. The first punch came so fast. His father never saw it. Didn't even have time to raise his hands. Necati screamed. His mother screamed. His father fell, tried to get up, tried to protect his face. The gold ring on his finger, catching the streetlight with every desperate attempt to shield himself from the boots, from the fists, from the hate. Blood on the pavement, his father's blood, pooling under the streetlights, mixing with the melted snow. People walked by, dozens of people, families, couples, men in suits, women in dresses. They looked. Some stopped. Most kept walking. Nobody helped. Nobody called the police. Nobody said stop. 12-year-old Necati tried to run to his father. His mother held him back, covered his eyes. But he saw. He saw everything. When the bouncers finally stopped, they just walked back inside, laughing, wiping blood off their knuckles, back to their jobs, like nothing happened. His father lay there, broken, gasping, the money scattered around him, the birthday dinner money, stained with his blood. 3 days later, his father died. The hospital did what they could, but internal bleeding, ruptured spleen, broken ribs that punctured his lungs. By the time they understood how bad it was too late. Necati sat by his father's hospital bed, holding his hand, that rough, scarred, beautiful hand that used to carry him on its shoulders. Necati, my son. His father's voice was barely a whisper, so weak, so far away. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't give you more. Couldn't protect you. Couldn't be stronger. Baba, no. You tried. You always tried. The ring. Take the ring. It was my father's. And his father's. It's all I have to give you. Promise me. Promise me you'll be stronger than me. Promise me you won't let them break you. I promise, Baba. I promise. His father smiled. That gentle smile. One last time. And then he was gone. At the funeral, Necati didn't cry. Everyone expected him to. His mother, his relatives, his neighbors. But he just stood there, stone-faced, empty, staring at the casket. His mother tried to sell the ring the next week. They had nothing. No money for rent. No money for food. Nothing. But when she reached for it, Necati grabbed her wrist. Gentle but firm. No, and Not the ring. Never the ring. But Necati, we have to eat. We have to. I'll take care of us. I promise. But the ring stays. He was 13 years old. And in that moment, he stopped being a child. The next 6 years were a blur of survival. Necati worked. Everywhere. Anywhere. Warehouses. Construction sites. Loading docks. Any place that would pay cash and not ask questions about his age. He gave every mark to his mother. Every single one. For rent. For food. For survival. But at night, he'd take out the ring. His father's ring. And he'd polish it. Carefully. Lovingly. And he'd remember. The promises his father couldn't keep. The life his father couldn't give him. The world that killed his father for wanting one nice dinner for his wife. And somewhere in those dark nights, something changed inside Necati. The pain turned to anger. The anger turned to rage. And the rage turned to something colder. Something calculated. Something dangerous. They made you small, Baba. They made you beg. They made you weak. I'll never be small. I'll never beg. I'll never be weak. I'll make them afraid of me, the way they made you afraid of them. By 19, Necati had transformed. 6 feet tall, muscular, intimidating. But it wasn't just physical. There was something in his eyes now, something hard, something that made people nervous. He started working as a bouncer, the same job, the same position as the men who killed his father. His mother begged him not to. Necati, please. That world, it will destroy you, like it destroyed your father. No, and I'm not Baba. I won't let them destroy me. I'll use them. I'll learn from them. And then I'll take everything they have. You're scaring me. Good. Let them be scared too. He worked the nightclubs, first in Cologne, then Dusseldorf, then Hamburg. He learned fast how the system worked, who had power, who could be bought, who could be intimidated, who could be broken. Within 5 years, he controlled security for over 30 clubs. Owners respected him, feared him, needed him. But that's not what broke him. What killed the last piece of his humanity? He started recruiting young women, desperate women, foreign women who reminded him of his mother, scared, alone, needing help. And he lied to them, promised them jobs, safety, money, a better life. Then he sold them, forced them into prostitution, trapped them, just like the world trapped his father, just like Germany trapped his family. Did he think about them? About their pain? About their families? Maybe at first. Maybe he felt something. Guilt, shame, humanity. But then he'd look at the ring, his father's ring, and he'd remember. They didn't care about us. Why should I care about them? By 1997, Necati had built an empire, millions of dollars, connections everywhere, power that made politicians nervous, and protection from the most feared organization on earth, the Hells Angels. They saw something in him, a brother, a warrior, someone who understood loyalty, who understood family, who understood that the world is divided into wolves and sheep. And Necati, he was a wolf. For the first time since his father died, Necati felt like he belonged somewhere. The angels didn't care that he was Turkish, didn't care about his accent, his past, his pain. They cared about strength, loyalty, respect. They gave him something his father never had, protection, a family that would kill for him, a brotherhood that would never abandon him. And he gave them everything in return, his loyalty, his empire, his soul. But somewhere deep inside, buried under the money and the power and the fear, there was still that 8-year-old boy, freezing, alone, begging someone to buy his father's ring. And nobody stopped. Nobody cared. So what do you think? Was Necati born a monster? Or did the world create one? Drop your comment below. In 2001, German police finally made their move. Wiretaps, months of surveillance. They had everything. Evidence of human trafficking. Coercion. A criminal empire that stretched across Europe. And in 2002, they came for him. 300 officers. Multiple cities. Coordinated raids at dawn. They found Necati in Hamburg, the Reeperbahn, in a penthouse above one of his clubs, living like a king, like everything his father never got to be. He didn't resist, didn't run, just smiled that cold smile. My father died begging for dignity. I'll never beg for anything. The trial was brutal. Witnesses testified. Women he'd trafficked. Women he'd destroyed. Their stories were heartbreaking. Their pain undeniable. And Necati? He showed no emotion, no remorse, nothing. But his lawyer noticed something. During every break, every recess, Necati would touch the ring, his father's ring, just for a moment. A brief connection to something he'd lost so long ago. The verdict? Guilty. 9 years in prison. His mother visited him once. Only once. She was older now. Frail. Tired. She'd worked her whole life cleaning houses. Supporting herself. Refusing money from her son's empire. Necati, what have you become? I became strong and, like I promised. This isn't strength. This is hell. You become what you hated. No, I became what I needed to be. To survive. To never be weak like Baba. She started crying, soft tears running down her weathered face. Your father was never weak. He was the strongest man I ever knew. He worked himself to death for us. He loved us until his last breath. He protected us the only way he could. That's strength, Necati. Real strength. Not this. She stood to leave. Look back one last time. He'd be so ashamed of you. Those words hit harder than any prison sentence. Harder than any verdict. Because deep down, Necati knew she was right. But it was too late. The monster was already built. And monsters don't go back to being boys. But here's what shocked everyone. From inside prison, he ordered a hit on the prosecutor. And the police had it all on tape. It happened in 2003. A prison visit. An Albanian hitman. Coded language. Turkish dialect. But the transcripts were clear enough. The man who took my freedom. Make him disappear. How much? 50,000. Half now. Half when it's done. The prosecutor's name. His address. His family. His routine. Everything. Police arrested the hitman immediately. New charges. Conspiracy to murder. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. But then something happened. Something that still doesn't make sense. A mistranslation. One word. One phrase. One alleged error in the Turkish to German transcripts. And suddenly, the case collapsed. Released. 5 years served. Deported to Turkey. Free. The prosecutor? He quit. Fled Germany. Vanished. Some say Switzerland. Some say further. Nobody knows. He's never been seen again. Necati's mother died 2 months after his release. Alone in that same cramped apartment in Ehrenfeld. The same place they'd lived when his father was alive. When they were poor but together. When they were broken but still a family. Necati found out 3 days later. He was in Turkey, setting up operations. Building his new empire. Making connections with the Hell's Angels leadership. He didn't go to the funeral. Couldn't. German soil was forbidden. Banned for life. But that night, alone in his Istanbul apartment, he took out the ring, his father's ring, and for the first time since he was 12 years old, he cried, not for the empire he'd built, not for the power he'd gained, not for the fear he commanded, but for the boy he used to be, the father he'd lost, the mother he'd abandoned, the humanity he'd killed. I'm sorry, Baba. I'm sorry, Anne. I became strong. But I lost everything that mattered. By 2010, Necati was crowned president of the Hell's Angels Nomads Turkey. A king, a legend, untouchable. By 2015, he'd vanished to Dubai, living in luxury, protected by borders and money, and laws that couldn't reach him. And today, October 2025, he's still out there, somewhere, free, powerful, wealthy, but also alone, haunted, carrying that ring, that reminder, not of revenge, but of everything he destroyed, trying to never be weak again. His victims still suffer. Their families still search. The prosecutor still hides. The empire still operates. But Necati, that 8-year-old boy freezing on the streets of Cologne, that child who just wanted someone to stop and help, he died a long time ago. And what's left? Just a ghost wearing his father's ring. A monster wearing a child's pain. A king sitting on a throne built from broken dreams. So what do you think? Was Necati a victim who became a villain? Or was there always darkness inside waiting to be unleashed? Can we ever justify what people become because of what was done to them? Drop your theory below. Subscribe for next week's case. Because every monster has a story, and every story has a lesson. Next week, the mobster who stole $200 million from his own family vanished without a trace and left behind a mystery that still haunts investigators. Subscribe now. Hit that bell. See you next week.